Shalom and welcome to the Valley of Decision. This is a series that will look at the information around the Messiah, Yahushua, around the Almighty Creator, Yahuwah, around the Hebrew people, their identity, who they are, where they can be found today. And this particular video is called the Name Game, and we're going to look at the game that has been played on the world, tricking us into calling on a false name, believing that we are calling on the Messiah. For those of us who do believe in the Messiah and who call on Him, wanting peace, wanting redemption, wanting guidance in our lives at this time period when things are really stressful, when things are really tense. And the idea that we have been tricked into calling on a false name, that, I don't know, it's a hard thing to accept sometimes. And what makes it even more confusing is when you have people who, they would call me basically a sacred namer, and for them, they take the name lightly, okay? Their attitude is, look, God, as they call Him, He's all-knowing, so He knows what's in your heart, so He doesn't matter, He doesn't care what you call Him, don't pay attention to those people, they're just making a big deal out of nothing. You can call Him whatever you want, as long as you're praying with sincerity and you're being true in what you're asking for, you can call Him what you want. Well, okay, you look at that, and then you read some of the scriptures. Here's one right here. This is the Messiah, and He is talking to His disciples, and He says, "Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven." And the prophet Ezra, in his visions of the last days, of the day of judgment, he saw a group of people, a multitude of people, receiving crowns, receiving glory and honor, receiving white robes and palms in their hands. And he asked the angel that was with them who those people were. And the angel said to him, "These be they that have put off the mortal clothing and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Elohim. Now are they crowned and receive palms." Then said I unto the angel, "What young person is it that crowneth them, and giveth them palms in their hands?" So he answered and said unto me, "It is the Son of Elohim, whom they have confessed in the world." Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Almighty. Okay, so you keep that in mind when these people are telling you, it don't matter, you can call Him what you want, And even Enoch, in his visions of the last days, he saw the Messiah also, and he saw the reverence that people had for Him. And he says in chapter 48, "In that hour was the Son of Man evoked. A support shall He be for the righteous and the holy to lean upon without falling, and He shall be the light of nations. All who dwell on earth shall fall down and worship before Him, shall bless and glorify Him, and sing praises to the name of the Father of spirits." And in another part he says, "For in His name shall they be preserved, and His will shall be their life." In His name shall they be preserved. So His name has the power to save, to preserve, to protect, okay? So you keep that in mind when people tell you it doesn't matter, you can call Him what you want, okay? And then Peter, in healing a man who had been lame all his life, that man went jumping for joy into the temple, praising the Almighty, and Peter and the disciples that were with him were arrested. And when they stood before trial, they told the priest, they said that they healed him in the name of the Messiah, and they said that's the only way you can get salvation. They said, "For there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved." So if you want salvation, if you want to have that peace and power associated with His name, you're going to need to know His name, okay? But see, we've been tricked. The majority of us have been tricked into calling on the false name Jesus, okay? And when you start to do your research, you come to the realization that Jesus is a relatively new name that's being used for the Messiah, okay? You can look in the 1611 edition of the King James Version of the Hebrew Scriptures, and you will, upon opening the table of contents, you will find that every name that we are used to having, seeing spelled with a J, you will see that it is spelled with an I. Why? Because that sound, J, the J sound, and the letter J, the corresponding symbol, to that sound was not in English. That's the 1600s. So that's fairly recent in terms of world history. It wasn't around. All of those names that we are used to seeing spelled with the letter J before the 1600s in English, they were spelled with the letter I. So where we're used to the name Jacob, it was spelled, you can see it in the table of contents in that 1611 version, it was spelled with an I, pronounced Iacob. Job was pronounced Iob. Jesus was pronounced Jesus. So let's break down this name, Jesus. We do our study, we realize Ies is an abbreviated name for Ieso, who is Bacchus. Okay? Also, Iesus is a form of the name Iaso, who is a Greek deity of healing. So you've got two different gods here, two different deities that they've put the names together, and they have put it in the scriptures, because all versions in English of the King James Version after the 1611 edition have Jesus. Okay? But this Iesus, that is, they've made this name out of two different Greek deities. Okay, so this is why it's called the name game. But I'm going to show some more references, citations to prove this. Okay, in the version of the scriptures called the scriptures, there is a definition under the name Jesus. You have Iaso. The Greek goddess of healing reveals that the name Iaso is Ieso in the Ionic dialect of the Greeks. Iesus being the contracted genitive form. Okay, when you talk about genitive, that's talking, in grammar, those of us who remember our grammar lessons, a genitive is an affix, meaning the word, it's put either as a prefix at the front of a word or a suffix at the end of a word. So a suffix, that would be like ness, gentleness, meekness, kindness. It's a genitive or an affix. In this case, it's a suffix because it goes at the end of the word. Okay, so he's basically saying that Iesus is a contracted, a contraction. It is a contracted genitive form. Okay, and read a little further. Quote, further, it is well known that Ies is the abbreviated form of the name Iesus, and Dr. Bullinger in the Apocalypse, page 396, says Ies was part of the name of Bacchus. So Bacchus, who's this Bacchus? Okay, so in doing just a Google search, in all honesty, okay, Bacchus, turns out, is Roman god of wine and revelry, associated with the Greek god Dionysus, okay, the god of wine and of harvest. But here are some quotes. Bacchus is an ancient Roman god synonymous with the Greek god Dionysus. He is typically shown as the god of harvest, grapes, fertility, and theater. Some darker traditions associate the god with madness, possibly due to his association with wine drinking and the resulting drunkenness. Another quote, Bacchus was the son of Jupiter. When he grew up, he discovered the culture of the vine and the mode of extracting its precious juice. And another quote, the Roman god of wine and intoxication, equated with the Greek Dionysus. His festival was celebrated on March 16th and 17th. The Bacchanala, orgies in honor of Dionysus, were in Rome around 200 BCE. And when I was doing my search, I kept being led to these websites on wines and spirits. Well, now I know why. I mean, this guy has an enduring legacy. I mean, you can put in Bacchus and you're going to get Bacchus Imports, Bacchus Bistro, Bacchus Market, Bacchus Wine Store. I mean, literally, this is who this God is. And we have been tricked into calling on a version of this name, okay? And this was started by the Greeks, who had no love for the Hebrews or the Jews coming from the name Judah, their kingdom, okay? But if you read in 2 Maccabees in the Apocrypha, you'll see how they treated the Hebrew people. Now the Apocrypha is sometimes called the intertestamental books. Those are the books that carry the history of the Hebrews or the kingdom of Judah, starting from at the end of Malachi to right before the New Testament, when they were under Greek occupation. But how they had festivals and orgies in the temple, the sacred temple that Solomon built to this god Bacchus. How they desecrated the temple, killed pigs in the temple, and tortured the people, the Hebrews, into getting them to eat this animal, which was vile and an abomination in their eyes, okay? And to add insult to injury, they took the name Yahushua, the real name, the Hebrew name of the Messiah, out of the scriptures, and they replaced it with this Greco-Roman version of Bacchus, Jesus, okay? And they have taken that name out, and they've proselytized and colonized the world in many instances torturing and slaughtering people to get them to believe in this name. And that is the name that is in our scriptures to this day. And you cannot tell me that you do not feel just a little bit deceived upon hearing this. And I hope that this will make some of you do research, if for no other reason than to try and prove me wrong. Okay? I know that I'm not. Okay, the Holy Spirit has confirmed this to me, and just through logic, through reason, through history, okay, I know that this is true, that they have played us, they've tricked us into calling on another name. And this explains why the Messiah said at one point that on the day of judgment, many people are going to say to him, you know, Lord, Lord, didn't we called upon thy name, we performed miracles in thy name. And he's going to say to them, I know you not. Okay, yeah, you may have been performing miracles, but you weren't doing them in my name. Okay, that explains why he would say something like that. People have been tricked. People have been deceived. And then to add even further insult to the injury, we have also been given this false image to associate with this false name. Okay, and this is the most popular of the icons representing Jesus. Okay, but when you start doing more research, you realize that this is actually portraits based on one of the sons of Pope Alexander VI, Cesare Borgia. The Borgia family was a notorious family in that history of that time period in history, and he was a known murderer. He was accused of having an incestuous relationship with his sister, possibly even fathering one of her children. We know that Cesare Borgia was a contemporary of Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote The Prince, and in his notes he says that many of the instances that he writes about in that book, that he based them on literal, actions, events that took place in the life of Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia was admired by a lot of people for the ambitious things that he did to gain power and to keep his family in power. Okay, he was also one of the suspects in the murder of his brother. Okay, but he's been their life, their history has been written about by many people, as recently as Mario Puzo. Okay, but it's the idea that that they would choose this man, a notorious man, an infamous man, an ambitious man, a poisoner who may have even fathered his sister's child, that they would use his image to represent the Messiah. You can't tell me, those of you who have a love and an admiration, who have hope resting on the Messiah, that you are pleased with the fact that they would choose this man's face to represent the Messiah? Do you really think the Almighty Father and His only begotten Son are looking down from heaven pleased that they are doing that? I don't think they are. Okay, but that's this part of the name game, the false name and the false image. Okay, but what's the truth? The truth is that the Messiah's name is Yahushua. He was Hebrew. Yahushua is a Hebrew name. The closest translation in English would be Joshua. That's not his name, but it's closer than Jesus. Okay, but he was Hebrew. Hebrews are black. Okay, and in that time period, in that area of the ancient world, all of the Shemites and the Hamites were black people. Okay, but this is the truth, and that's why this Valley of Decision is a series that's going to present information and evidence to help you reach this same conclusion. Okay, and it is my way of testifying and witnessing to you what I know to be true. And anyone who is familiar with my channel, you know, okay, that one, that I am not an advocate of deception. I am not an advocate of lying. I mean, yes, I did have my face covered, but that was a persona for a character, Rebel Frack, which I have no problems with that. But you know that I advocate peace, okay, that I am not into any types of games of this nature, especially when it comes to matters like this. And I believe in the truth, okay? And as the Messiah said, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And one of the ways that we can find truth is by praying and seeking guidance. And wouldn't it really help if you were praying to the actual Messiah in a name that he would recognize, that he would respond to? Okay. That's really it for this video. I've got a few more, but shalom.